Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to our live stream recapping the 2023 AWS reInvent conference that happened in Vegas recently. PM Square sent a squad of my colleagues to the conference, and I've never been, so I wanted to learn more about their experiences and some of what AWS covered and what's to come for 2024, if we know anything about that. So forgive my voice today. Just got back from Costa Rica, and I brought some sort of nasty illness with me. If my voice cracks a bit today, I'm not in fact a prepubescent kid. I just have like malaria or something. So forgive me. With me today are Rupak, Andreea, and Chris Chapman, consultants on our cloud team and recent AWS reInvent attendees who can give us some insight around the conference in and outs. So how are you guys? Are you all feeling well? Any voice crackling on your end?
No malaria. So yeah, we finally recovered. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. No malaria. Sometimes when you go to those conferences, you do wind up with some pretty nasty illnesses. So I'm glad you're all alive and kicking. That's wonderful. So this happened in Vegas, right? I heard 60,000 people. So I'm imagining this probably took place over a few different resorts or maybe at the conference center. Where exactly was AWS this year? reInvent?
Yeah, so it is over a number of different sites. The main hub is in Venetian. We also have satellite campuses in Mandalay and Jim Grand, Caesars Expo, and Wynn. I think that's all of them. So it's the largest conference I've ever been to. I remember going back to the IBM conferences. I thought that was big just being in Mandalay Bay, but being across 5 or 6 is something else. Navigating around it's a lot of practice. I think the more you go, the better you get at it. But they have shuttle services between all the venues, so you can't get there. You just need to plan a little bit if you got a venue hop.
Nice. Was this? Now I know that they were having that Formula One thing going on in Vegas. Was this like before, during, or after that?
I think it was after it, but they still had some of the tracks set up, and so some of the shuttles were a bit trickier, but with your AWS badge, you were able to take the monorail, and that was a huge time saver. Yeah. So that was happening at the same time, made things a little bit trickier, but figured our way around it nonetheless.
Yeah, or maybe you rent a Tesla and then you can take that cool little tunnel. I don't know if you heard about that, but it's a little tunnel that's only available to Teslas, like near the Vegas Strip. I think that's pretty interesting and cool.
The Hyperloop, yeah.
Yeah, Hyperloop. Yeah, that's it. Okay. So I heard generative AI was everywhere. So we'll definitely jump into that a little bit. But first, let's start with some softballs. All right. So why don't you guys tell me what your favorite session was?
I can start with that. So for me, it was mostly generative AI, generative BI. There was some. So this year, I've seen Amazon have invested heavily in their BI side. So lots of good features on QuickSight. I'm happy to see that. So I had a couple of sessions on generative BI, which was a couple of my favorites.
Nice, and it seems like Q is also getting into that space too, right? It's not just question and answer chat body stuff. It's also generative AI too, right?
Right. So earlier it had with the Q Amazon. I mean, it had QuickSight Q that basically you can use natural languages to answer questions. But now they have leveraged generative BI, which is extension of generative AI into BI perspective, where they have leveraged Bedrock, which you'll hear a lot today. And you can actually create visualizations based on your natural language questions.
Very cool. Yeah. AI augmented and assisted BI. I love it. Chris, Andreea, do you guys have anything in particular that stood out to you as like your favorite?
For me, I think there was just a lot of information, and each session was individually very interesting. One thing for me was the type of session, because you had different types, whether it be a workshop or a chalk talk, which was they present for roughly 5 to 10 minutes, and then it's a very interactive between the presenter, and just being present for some of those discussions was very interesting because you get to hear a lot of what other people in different industries or in different businesses, what they're struggling with or the path that they're on. So I think that provided a unique lens to some of the key concepts that we have been learning about. And of course, builder sessions and workshops where you get to get your hands dirty and really work with the tools were also really exciting.
Nice.
Yeah, just really the Chalk Talk. Those are always some of my favorite sessions each year. I always try to schedule some of those. And I try to target talks where it's a technology I want to learn more about. Because if it's a whiteboarding session with like product manager for that particular service or product. And what I find really useful is a lot of times it's going to be a lot of users of that service or in the industry. And if they're using it, they typically have a lot of complaints and they beat up the project managers a little bit. So you get to see where they're excelling, but also get to hear really quickly a lot of pitfalls that they're experiencing. And so you really can get a crash course on that service. So I always find
interesting,
pretty engaging and interesting.
Yeah, interesting. So product managers directly in front of developers. I mean, a lot of times that can be a little contentious. The vibe was still good though.
No, it is. Yeah, they get to a good spot, but they bring hard questions, and the product managers are always really well receiving that. But it's good conversation, and like I said, I always try to target things that I don't know that much about, because you really get the current pro back of how it's being used in the real world and what the use cases are. So I always find that interesting. My favorite sessions, Gen AI, yes. I mean, most of our sessions revolved around that, either directly or indirectly. The ones I found most useful were were clients, not led by AWS, but clients giving their use cases that they've built, their real world experiences with it. One just how they operationalized it, but I know one use case that was from Lockheed Martin, and one of their developers kind of went off and connected a chatbot to their ERP system and was able to do through natural language, have the executives be able to ask questions like, how many orders do we have in flight today? How many people are working on these? And just have a natural conversation with a lot of the stuff you probably get with an executive style dashboard, just with an app in their pocket. And I think for a PM Square audience, I think that's right on target with, I think, a lot of the analytics and data surfacing that we do. And that really resonated with me.
Fantastic. Yeah, I want to dive into some of that here in a bit, but you guys mentioned Chalk Talks, and that got me thinking about football, right? So I heard that there was this like interactive, like the NFL Next Gen Stats that AWS does for their Thursday Night Football and stuff. I heard that they had this like interactive AI experience where you were like looking at a defense, right, as if you were a quarterback and trying to read the coverage. So I don't know if you guys like got to play on the like exhibit floor with any of the AI race cars or quarterback simulation things, but the quarterback one sounded really interesting because it's like you had to see the real-time information coming at you, see the actual coverage, and then determine where the blitz was coming from, which to me sounded really fun and interesting. Did you guys get to play with any of that stuff on the exhibit floor?
I think there were a lot of long lines, so very popular things. And there were, I think this was the first year that AWS actually created a rec center for reInvent. And so it wasn't just at the expo, but rather a rec center where there was every arts and crafts, sports under the sun, from pickleball tournaments to the football exercise you had just described, and to decorating mugs, which in between a lot of jam-packed sessions, I did get a chance to go decorate a mug, and it was exactly what my brain needed, just tiny little break, and then jump right back into another session. So there were quite a few of those.
Very cool. That sounds awesome. What a clever way to go about things. I spent a lot of time at Day One North consulting for AWS way back when, and this is back when like those little Kiva robots first came out. The little robots that do the warehouse management stuff and move around, you know, pallets and things like that. So I got to see some of that, like, I don't know, well over a decade ago. Did you guys get to see any interesting robots? Like, are we talking like iRobot sort of stuff, or like, did you see anything interesting in terms of robotics there?
The one that I don't know if specific robotics, there was interesting. There were a number of different racetracks, little like RC style cars. People were doing different use cases. There was one where it was I think it was self-driving, and they had paths and turns, and they were showing kind of the lidar that the device was seeing. So I think that was one of the closer ones I saw. I don't know if either you saw anything, but that was cool. There was also a lot of having to reset the car. So
Not the robots, but coming back to your question, Craig, I I didn't get a chance, but to participate, I was really excited to participate, but again, long lines. But they had this AI powered soccer free kicks um, kind of demo where you can measure your accuracy and speed.
Hmm.
It gives you suggestions on where you can hit the next ball. So it was
Oh,
pretty
cool.
cool. I spent like 5 minutes just watching some of the other consultant or some of the other participant utilizing that AI part, and it was cool. But again, the long lines, there were pretty long lines everywhere.
Yeah, I'll bet. That's cool. I play keeper indoor soccer, right? And the whole like conventional logic with a free kick as a keeper is you basically have to guess 50-50, right?
Right.
So I wonder like if with all these next gen stats and data that they collect at reInvent, for example, if I don't know, greater insight can be made into for goalkeepers in terms of like how to detect real time without real time analytics at your fingertips which way the shot's going, if there are any tells or anything interesting. So if you ever track that down, Rupak, please let me know. It'll give me an advantage in my old man league that I play in.
Absolutely. I also, I mean, the reason I wanted to look into that is because I play soccer as well, 5-on-5 in Denver. So that was pretty exciting. And then I was really happy and surprised at the same time to see how it was able to predict your score, the accuracy and the speed. I mean, speed was given, but then again, the accuracy prediction was pretty cool for me.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about next gen AWS chips. So I don't know how much we spent. I mean, obviously we're not chip manufacturers, so I don't know how much this appealed to us in particular. But I'm always curious when I hear that different vendors come out with these new chips that help them with specifically around generative AI workloads. Right? We all know that compute is such a massive issue when it comes to Gen AI. Right? So any technological advantage that chip manufacturers can gain, goes a long way. So I heard that AWS had some chip improvements or developments that kind of make specifically Gen AI kind of work better, move faster. Did you guys get any info on that?
sorry. I didn't attend any specific sessions. Did read up on some of those. One of the things with reInvent, I know there's a page of AWS's page of everything announced at reInvent. It's quite long. So they made a number of announcements for their custom silicon, their Graviton platform. I think they make yearly enhancements to that based on their own ARM architecture. For the AI ML workload you're talking about, they had two big announcements around Inferentia and Trainium, both specialized on training ML workloads, and then running Inferentia for running inference on Gen AI workloads. And so these were designed just at a really high level, basically to deliver really high performance at an optimal cost, being able to how with AWS work with them long enough. It's really about right sizing and not paying for any more that you need, and so being able to match the right size, right performant instance with the workload that you're doing, and so that's what these look to do and try to do it in the most efficient way.
Good. Yeah. Any efficiencies we gain there is important, right? Because I mean, I know a lot of the pricing models now are either based on compute or tokens, right? And it's all a bit ambiguous. A lot of times you wind up down a road, and you're down that road, right, without really understanding the full compute costs that are coming your way. So, start small, use new tech, and gain all the efficiencies you can that way.
Yeah, and
so
just to piggyback. Oh, sorry, just to piggyback off. There was, especially with Gen AI workloads, if you're just jumping into that, it can be a little apprehensive. Like, what will the cost be? I think there might be this assumption that it's going to be a lot. I did attend some sessions on cost management around these workloads. And the feedback that was given was the number one is don't assume you need the 70 billion llama model. That's going to cost a lot to run inference and to use compute. You may be able to get away with a smaller model that can be just as good and just as performant if the use case is simple. You can also look to, depending on what the needs are, if it isn't as a performant need, like mentioned those new inference instances, you can go much smaller. You don't always have the multiple billions of parameters everyone is drawn to, but that doesn't always need to be the case. And so it's really about right sizing, knowing your use case, knowing what the ask is, and knowing how good is good enough for some of these models, and try to focus in on that.
Yeah, good advice, Chris. It's always a trade-off between just how accurate do you need it versus just how much are you willing to spend. So yeah, makes perfect sense to me. So let's talk a little bit about some of the AI stuff. So I mean, when I think AWS and I think Bedrock, I think Gen AI. When I think SageMaker, I think more kind of conventional machine learning. Have they grown in any way, shape, or form that kind of caught your attention, either of those, two sides of the AI house?
Absolutely. I think there's so many new developments with Bedrock and SageMaker as well. And just going to one of the key takeaways that I got overall from the conference is there was a big focus on responsible AI. And so as the world is definitely shifting towards more Gen AI, there is a very big emphasis on making sure that while there is all of this exciting innovation, that also comes with great power and responsibility. And it's really important to make sure that the system's fair, robust, secure, explainable, and so forth. And one new feature of SageMaker was Clarify, and that helps detect bias, stereotyping. It also helps explain model predictions. It measures model accuracy. So it does a wide variety of functions that are all aimed at being more responsible with your LLM, but also on that same note, what it's being used for now is to also help evaluate different foundational models to help you identify, compare which is the best foundational model for your specific use case based on just a variety of criteria across different tasks. And this can all happen within minutes, which is pretty impressive. And another feature still within SageMaker, which still ties to responsible AI, is a human-in-the-loop capability. And so you can leverage that specific feature so that way if you're getting a response from an LLM, if the confidence is pretty low, it won't push that request out. It'll bump it over into a loop so that way it will be reviewed by a live human. And that data can also then be used for further training, which, again, also something that's really interesting. And it helps make sure this entire process is just more ethical, responsible across the board. So those are two features I found really interesting.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that from AWS. I mean, all the AI vendors are definitely considering the implications of AI to humanity, right? And AI ethics obviously needs to be, something that's in the forethought area, not an afterthought, right? So explainability, ethics, governance, accountability, things like that, certainly need to play into AI workloads in the future if you're going to ever gain, full-on adoption and dependability. And even better, there's open ethics that are going on, open AI ethics that are going on right now, with all the major vendors playing a role and kind of trying to establish some standards. So I'm glad to hear AWS in that space, because they are certainly one of the big boys. What about Amazon Q? So I heard, Rupak, we talked a little bit about that before, right? It started off as kind of a back, in the early Insight or QuickSight days, it was kind of more of a Q&A sort of a application, but now there's a little more generative AI going on. Are you excited about what you saw? Do you think it's going to be useful?
Yes, so it's still an early stage, but it's pretty exciting. So basically, a queue, just to give you a general perspective, a queue is a it's an AI assistant that can be uh, tailored to your company's requirement, right? So a queue can help you facilitate a conversation where you can ask questions on your data, about your data. Also, it helps content generations. It helps, basically the aim of the queue is to streamline tasks and also help you spark creativity and innovation at work. So the session that I've attended with the queue that they have integrated with Redshift, where you can basically use natural language to ask questions about, basically write a SQL and give me a join about your data, which if you ask with the if you ask that question with the general AI tool, it'll give you a generic answer. But Q is smart enough to know which um, columns and which is your foreign key and which is your primary key, so it will basically give you accurate answers. So it helps you reduce the tedious task that a developer has to create. So that's
Sure.
that's pretty exciting. Also, again, with you can leverage that with different AWS services. For example, with Glue, it will help you streamline the integration jobs, right? So it will, with minimum coding, you can just ask different questions on how to create a data pipeline, and um, it will give you a certain specific answer that um, help you reduce the manual tasks. So it's pretty neat, but still early. It's an early stage, and they have, I think, integrated with 20 services right now. They have planned to integrate it with more services. So far, I'm pretty impressed. I'm pretty sure they'll have more enhanced in queue that'll
Hmm.
make our job a little easier.
Nice. Yeah, that does sound like it could make our jobs easier. You mentioned Glue. Now that kind of reminded me when I was looking at the session list before, when I was trying to decide whether or not I was going to be able to go to reInvent 2023. I remember seeing a particular phrase a lot that kind of caught my attention: zero ETL future. Now, I mean, to the layman, somebody who didn't go, to me, I would kind of interpret that as, I don't know, maybe more streaming, more API endpoints, things like that. Grab data rather than doing conventional ETL, ELT jobs. And obviously, as we all know, as data warehouse professionals and cloud professionals, a lot of the cost in data warehousing, conventional data warehousing, comes in the data engineering, data movement side, right? So, well, what does that mean to you when when AWS uses that term, zero ETL future? What exactly does that mean to you?
So so basically you can integrate Q or the AI perspective and basically not leverage. This is what I understand, but not leverage the manual coding, and you can basically ask questions with Q that can give you solutions uh, from where you can bring your raw data into a form where you can um, basically no integration, no ETL needed, where you can ask questions and that can give you answers that helps your business to make decisions.
So, Rupak, are you talking about like virtualization effectively, where you're not actually having to move the data and it's,
Right, kind of,
queuing
yes,
up?
yes.
Very cool.
Yeah, and some of the zero ETL. So I know earlier this year they announced Postgres zero ETL to Redshift. At reInvent, there were a number of zero ETLs for OpenSearch, DynamoDB. Now I just lost the other one. There's the second one. Um, Also to OpenSearch. But what they're doing is they're managing real-time replication in the backend for you. So like Postgres, you can have your Postgres or also Aurora cluster that will replicate transactional tables into Redshift for you. So you can have access to that, and you're not having to manage that ETL for you. What we were discussing about the virtualization and more federation piece, those tools are in place. Actually, one that I saw um, that was just announced actually in October of this year, Data Zone, which is designed to be a new data governance hub. and really caught my attention. It's still really early on. I know there were things that came up in that talk, like role and cell level security still not available. But the goal is to have the consumer publisher style model. Publishers and producers create the data asset, enrich it, and then publish it for consumers to find. The really neat thing about this that caught my attention was it wasn't just a really nice catalog that you could then find the data that you need, but they extended that to having, if you're familiar with the AWS service catalog, where admins can create predefined resources for users to deploy on their own. They had that baked into here around machine learning. So data scientists could find the data set they need, and then at the same time, they could turn around and immediately provision a SageMaker instance for their workload and get an endpoint, connect to it with their notebook, and do their work, never having to engage with an admin or anyone else to provision that for them. It was all in that one hub. So that was really compelling to me, just have that full end-to-end managed in the one space.
Yeah, it sounds like some pretty sweet integration. So you said that was Data Zone? Was that the term?
It was Data Zone. Yeah, it's new. It's automated data cataloging, a number of different databases, all the traditional ones you have. They also have more custom-built ones like HealthLake, Amazon HealthLake for healthcare workloads is supported with that. Being able to extend the Glue catalog even further with that.
Good.
By using machine learning to populate, everyone wants to, Craig, I know you've had these conversations about, right? Everyone wants a really nice curated data catalog. It takes a lot of work, to say this field is this with a description and who uses it and what tables, but leveraging machine learning to populate that and do a lot of that heavy lifting for you. So then you can go and you can refine that, but most of the work is done through that process.
Fantastic. So a big evolution of Glue Data Catalog. I like it, with a lot of integration points added. That's cool. Let's talk a little bit about some of the infrastructure stuff that I caught wind of. So I'm not sure, Chris, this may be your area here. The S3 Express One Zone. I don't know if that caught your attention or not, but it sounded like some sort of persistent, easy to deploy. Not that it's not already easy. EC2 sort of a space. Am I reading that right?
Well, it's a new classification for S3. A lot of the ML Gen AI workloads now, you are reading and writing to disk, in most cases S3. SageMaker, for example, if you're processing data from a data lake and writing training data sets, you're going to be writing this back to S3 typically. What this does, so what One Zone Express has done is one zone. So you say persistent. This is one zone. So most of the other tiers of S3 are multi availability zone. So they're going to have higher durability. This won't be. But the goal with this is it's really high performant. It's designed for low latency workloads that require a lot of throughput. To be able to make those training and inferences workloads run much more quickly, much more efficiently. So it's really designed as a space for those ML Gen AI workloads that rely on a space like S3 to both read and write too, but do it in a much more performant way.
Gotcha. Yeah, I get that. Very cool. And I also heard about that one enterprise. Actually, I see it every time I go to Whole Foods. So the palm reader thing, right? I can't even get my laptop's finger sensor to work. So I'm not hopeful with that. But did anybody get to play with that at all? The palm recognition stuff?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think I maybe saw one, but yeah, I've yet to give her my palm yet.
Yeah. I think I have defective fingertips or something. Maybe my palm will work better. I don't know. But yeah, I'm glad that I have a play zone at Whole Foods to be able to give it a shot. Yeah. So I don't know. Behind the scenes, did you learn anything about what's to come for 2024? Is reInvent going to be in Vegas again? Any insights on the upcoming conference or the next conference?
As far as I know, reInvent is going to be in Vegas until the foreseeable future. You mentioned all the different sites that they spread across. I don't know many other cities that can facilitate that in a nice simple way. Yeah, I did a little work. I did a little looking on. So AWS events, they have a dedicated site for that. I don't see much in 2024 yet published. Probably waiting for the new year to get the new events published. I will say, I know a good series to look out for. Their Summit series. So it's like a mini reInvent. They go across a number of different cities: New York, Chicago, LA, San Fran. So be on the lookout for those if they're in your area. Those are typically free or really low cost. You get similar types of sessions and experiences with that.
Gotcha. Speaking of like mini summits and stuff, do we have any PM Square events that we can tease? Anything cloud or AWS related that we have coming up that comes to mind?
We are working on some series coming first of the year, so we're doing our own 2024 planning at the moment. So yeah, be on the lookout. We're expecting to kick off start of the year with a number of series and events online.
Cool. Okay. Before we sign off, is there anything else that's stuck in your craw that you want to talk about as far as reInvent went?
Yes. I would like to talk about Bedrock agents, which are really neat and really cool, very briefly. And they essentially break down and orchestrate any task that you send their way. And it can do this by dynamically invoking APIs. And the really neat thing about this is that the Bedrock agents, they can access your knowledge bases if you give it the appropriate permissions. And so it can search through, pull out any data, and then it can send additional requests to any LLMs that you desire. And so you can really configure it to do anything. And then also it can take actions on your behalf. So it's a lot more advanced than just an AI assistant. And the coolest thing about it is that you can go back and trace all of the steps. So you essentially ask it to do something. It'll break down all of those tasks into smaller subtasks, similar to how Redshift handles queries. So it'll continuously break it down strategically, and then you can look on the back end, and again, you can see the requests that it's sending to the LLMs. You can actually even use Bedrock agents to learn from how it interprets certain tasks or requests. So not only does it do so many things on your behalf, but you can really learn a lot from it as well. But very, very powerful.
Yeah, and you said Bedrock agents. That's the terminology there.
Yep, it's a feature of Bedrock.
Very cool. Chris, Rupak, anything else that you guys wanted to cover?
I'll be brief. I just want to talk about a little bit about generative BI. It is a new feature that they are still testing, but it's BI capabilities, which is driven by Bedrocks, which basically helps users to create like dashboards, like I mentioned earlier, using natural languages. Why this is very powerful and important is because you don't even have to be a BI developer or data analyst to create a dashboard now. You can basically write a natural language and it'll give you all the dashboards, all the panels, all the reports that you're looking for, right? So this is very powerful. Behind the scenes, yes, there are some integration that you have to do, which is pretty straightforward if you're knowledgeable about the data. But this is something that we have already tested and we have presented to our clients. And I think this is going forward. Generative BI is something that will be very powerful.
Fantastic. Yeah. If it saves people cycles on the development side, it makes a whole lot of sense to me. Chris, anything more you want to talk about?
Yeah, I just want to look back. You mentioned before SageMaker being an ML and where does it fit in Gen AI? I know one of the things, one of the big takeaways was really being able to isolate. You have Bedrock, you have SageMaker, when to use each, because even in SageMaker, you can deploy all the most popular LLMs from Hugging Face, Meta, Anthropic on SageMaker. But you can also deploy, you also have the suite of pre-built ones that are in Bedrock. So when to use the two, what's each used for. SageMaker has really expanded in its capabilities. You can still do classic machine learning, but there's also a number of ways you can build and deploy LLMs on it as well. In the way that it was best described, I think, during some of the sessions is Bedrock is serverless. So if you just want to get up and running and do it very, very quickly, that's the way to do it. But you're going to be limited in a lot of the tuning levers that you have because you don't see any of the underlying servers. With SageMaker, you're deploying an instance. Now you have control over latency and throughput. You can really tune in the kind of disk you're using, I/O, network, all of that can be customized. And so you can really tune that to the performance that you need. But then you're managing that instance. And so that's the trade-off, serverless versus, infrastructure that you have to manage, but you're going to have a lot more tuning and capabilities with that. So just one of the ways to think through that, I know, as we're developing our own internal workloads using GenAI, it's one of the things we're looking at is performance and which platform might be most optimal to run on. And so just try to think of those. You can do both in there. And one of the other things you can do is there is also integration points between both. You can, if you need to do any fine tuning, you can do that in SageMaker. You can deploy that fine tune model on Bedrock if you don't want to manage the infrastructure. You can create, Andrea's bringing up knowledge bases. You can create a custom knowledge base in Bedrock. You can then have that knowledge base be ingested with a number of other services like Lex or SageMaker models, any other kind of RAG model that or workflow that you'd have there. So it's very blurred, a lot of crossover there, but I think that's a good way. A lot of customizability and tuning for SageMaker, and then just easy plug and play serverless with Bedrock.
Yeah, there are so many arrows in your quiver when you get into the AWS stack, So I'm glad to hear that GenAI was a focus. I'm glad to hear that they're growing in that regard. And that is seems to be a really massive focal point for AWS. So thanks a bunch for your time today, guys. I really appreciate it. Everybody who joined us in the live stream, thanks a bunch. Make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have a lot of great content out there all around analytics and data warehousing and GenAI. Not just AWS specific, but other cloud providers and vendors as well. Of course, we have a really rich blog content on our website, pmsquare.com/blog. And we also have a newsletter that we put out every month that one of our awesome consultants goes in depth on a particular thing that's interesting them at the moment. So you don't want to miss that either. So again, thanks guys. Appreciate your time today. And everybody else, we'll see you again next time.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.